Yes. You will pay for your war crimes, Ing. God damn, that's a lot of chickens. I'm gonna go and you think what about you done. Don't worry about that, Sven. I was just talking to Ingvar, and it seems it's cool now. What's that? Will I hurt him?
Okay, let's kick things off with the financial industry's take on classics. So, we've got an article from Barron's that touches on the Activision Blizzard outlook. Now, the article itself is very much designed for the financial sector, so it does simplify a lot of the gaming stuff.
So I don't think I have to tell you that Anthem's launch was pretty rough, and a lot of people, a lot of the hardcore fans in particular, basically were writing on the future of Anthem being much better, that in a year, that in a few months, there would be enough updates that the game would be bolstered to a decent state.
Today's Jimquisition, both personally and professionally, is an important one. You could almost say this one is the biggie.
What's going on, gamers? Brian here, and today we're talking about YouTube Gaming Rewind 2019 in summary. And honestly, I was inclined to sit here and start this video, and really the mindset that I've had about YouTube gaming for the last year has just been like, has 2019 just sucked? It felt like everything was just a bit of bad news wrapped up as a whole, but there's obviously some standouts, some real highlights of the year as well. But I think right now in the short term, we're really easily inclined to remember just the bad things. And there have been plenty of them in 2019. And obviously the YouTube Rewind that just came out didn't really address any of those. It talked about like the top 5 games, which Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite. What a shocker that is how it plays out. Now, with COPPA and with all those changes that are coming in 2020, who knows if those games are going to survive or how content is going to evolve from here. So 2019 started off with a lot of hope for me. I was very excited to see what it could bring. We had a new expansion with Final Fantasy XIV about to release, obviously, that summer, and that went really well. But Anthem was coming out, a lot of people were excited about it, and that excitement quickly was diminished when it really turned out that there wasn't a plan or an end game. And all that has shifted and changed, and who knows, we might be doing it a whole nother round in 2020 or 2021. We'll have to wait and see what the future of Anthem holds. But in contrast to that, then you have EA launching, you kind of had 2 big EA products, Apex Legends, which was really well received. That kind of came out of nowhere at the beginning of this year, and it's been doing continually very well. It got a lot of players, and it's continuing to battle it out with Fortnite. Obviously, Fortnite still being the juggernaut and the powerhouse that it is. But like we said, with COPPA and those changes that will be coming in 2020, who knows if Apex Legends will be the more mature version that gamers will go towards, and it will continue to grow from there, where Fortnite, being way more kid-friendly, might be content that shifts. Both games are violent in and of themselves, but Apex Legends having that first-person view and Fortnite having the silly costumes and things like that, it'll be neat to see how it is all interpreted. Let's talk about layoffs. So obviously in the bad news category, Activision EA laying off a bunch of people as well, despite record profits. That was a big story within the gaming sphere in 2019. And this is very disappointing to see. And this is just continuing the Activision news that permeated 2019. It's kicked off kind of at BlizzCon right at the end of 2018 with Diablo Immortal. But then just barreling through 2018, it felt like Activision just continued to make misstep after misstep, and obviously leading to the Blitzchung Hong Kong situation and essentially their apology at BlizzCon, which for me personally, I took it as an apology. I think it's all about actions and really how they decide to handle it going forward. But if they're on thin ice, they've been on thin ice. If they've fallen into the ice, gamers are kind of really split over the whole thing. But then, 2020 is a whole new year. It could be a whole new way that we end up seeing Blizzard and how they decide to act to things. But overall, like, the theme in the cloud that hangs over them is, and especially a lot of gaming companies, is this sense of greed, the sense of just rifing through everybody's pockets. Loot boxes were a huge story, especially in the prior year, kicking off with Star Wars Battlefront 2 at the end of 2017, but then still permeating all throughout 2018. And now, essentially, we've seen a lot of developers and publishers kind of kick the loot box, I guess addiction might be a good way of explaining it, because essentially you see like Gears 5 and other notable games. We have, next year, the Marvel, game by Square Enix, is going to be coming out, and they said no loot boxes, but it is that kind of games as a service game. It's going to be an evolving game, and so there's going to be some monetization issues there. Monetization is the key word here. In fact, when you look at anything over 2019, and as we gear up for the next generation here in 2020, gamers are, it is this sense of like, almost kind of this sense of abuse where we're just like, how are they going to do it? Because there are ways that we tend to feel are valid and reasonable ways to make money. And then there's the other ways in which that it just feels like, why are they continuing to ask for money and more? And obviously the situation and the downside, the negative piece of all of that news is it just seems to work. Now, in the positive side, we saw PewDiePie return or come back to Minecraft, and this was huge on, just overall on the platform. PewDiePie being obviously the biggest single creator or just biggest creator that's not his own global company over in India, and this was really exciting to see because he is just a source of both positive and negative. There's been some issues that like he kicked off in prior years and has since obviously I think redeemed himself in the eyes of YouTube, but as far as the global YouTube versus old media, that continues to be a battle that has raged on. And it's really interesting to see because we saw that battle rage again in 2019 where CNET did a hit piece over on the angry gamers of YouTube. We had Jeremy on the podcast. We talked to him about that specifically. And that is something that we've seen YouTube battle and struggle with, especially YouTube gaming, again, over this last year when we talk about monetization issues, when we talk about discoverability. In fact, one of the cool things that's going to be interesting to see how this highlights going into 2020 is that they're finally separating real world violence and video game violence as it's been one category, and that is separating and splitting off, which is fascinating to see. And honestly, as somebody who doesn't necessarily cover a lot of violent games, hopefully that means we get to see a return within kind of the YouTube gaming space to have a wider variety of games that people like to play and enjoy. Because as far as it goes, when we talk about earned media, and we've kind of covered it a bit on this channel over this last year, is that it still is there. Like, people are going to play what people are talking about. And some of the largest creators on the platform are going to talk about the things that get views and get ad revenue. And that's impacted our gaming space. That's actually kind of one of the biggest things that we've seen shift over the last couple years, all kind of accumulating in 2019, where there is this sense that if you don't be playing Fortnite, if you don't be playing Minecraft, I don't know why I say it that way. It sounds like, anyway, I'm an idiot. If you don't be playing those games, you're not going to be getting paid, you're not going to be growing, you're not going to be thriving. And so we've seen a shift within 2019 of the death of X. Like, a lot of things are constantly dying. And honestly, it's kind of one of the things that when people see kind of YouTube itself is like, yeah, like there's really no death in these games. And in the classic sense, it could always be defined as the decline or the end of an era. But as long as like the companies are willing to support and put the devs in, like we've seen the rebirth of like No Man's Sky and how that came about and how people are excited about those changes. But it's taken a while. It's taken a while from the frustration and the hype that's built up that really then shifts over and transitions into, I guess, a better game. And that's kind of the strength of the games as a service, but the fatigue that gamers have experienced with Anthem and even with Destiny, even with Final Fantasy, even with these games that people are very hyped on right now. We'll put Anthem in the corner for now. But with those games that, they come out in their state and they're just disappointing and more. This year we've seen a lot of Twitch drama, like just a lot of it. And we've seen, obviously, within the Twitch drama sphere, we saw like Ninja, Shroud move themselves over to Mixer. And it seems like Mixer, YouTube, and more, a lot of people are making plays for bigger names. This ultimately will, I think, make a healthier creator economy in 2020 and beyond, because if you have a strong YouTube, strong Twitch, strong Mixer, or if Mixer actually is able to get to that point where it is strong, you get more options, you get ways for more people to be discovered, more competition for those willing to jump into the grind that is content creation, especially on the live side of it. That takes an exorbitant amount of energy. And we saw just recent bashing of Twitch streamers basically saying, are they even gamers? And we might cover that in more of a detailed video later this week or maybe next. But this kind of accumulates, obviously, with a couple things from Nintendo. You have Reggie retiring and Bowser taking over Nintendo. You have the release of the Switch Lite that happened in 2019. And honestly, like, a lot of people seem to be pretty excited about it. There is some kind of floating Joy-Con stick issues. I'm starting to experience it on my current Switch, and it is so annoying when it does happen. And then obviously Switch kind of got a quiet back end refresh. This accumulates obviously at the end of 2019 for Nintendo Switch with the release of Pokemon and drama being around that game as well. It seemed like for me that was really surprising, but it's all about miscommunication or overstating things, expectations getting set, whether correctly or incorrectly, and eventually people getting frustrated by it overall. And yeah, that's interesting to see, because I was surprised. I was away, we had a baby, and with that, with me stepping away and taking care of all that with the family, and coming back to see that people were really frustrated about Pokemon and how the animations and how all that kind of comes to play. Honestly, somebody said it best when they said that you have to remove the catch line, gotta catch them all now. And my thought process coming into the whole thing was, they came for our Pokemon too. 2019 came for all our games. But it really didn't. You know, we saw again Apex Legends, the release of Final Fantasy XIV, Star Wars, EA releasing a really good Star Wars game, which is surprising. And honestly, it's kind of confused a lot of gamers, because EA for at least a couple years, if not a couple decades, has been the villain within the video game industry from, I guess the fan base, from the enthusiast gamer who is really excited and passionate about it. EA bad is essentially the thing you always want to say, and here they are kind of doing that. And obviously the story shifts to that Respawn is the one who is pushing back on EA, and I think that's kind of scapegoating it. I think you got to say, like, hey, if you want games like this, you better as hell be purchasing games like this. Otherwise, you're just continuing to send EA the wrong message. Same thing with Activision, same thing with Ubisoft, same thing with Nintendo. When we purchase the bad stuff, and then we don't go buy the good stuff because we might be mad at the bad stuff for them for the bad stuff, we're continuing to say, like, we're going to give you money over in this category, but don't you dare give us the thing that we complain that you don't give us. And that ultimately is pretty frustrating, all in all. This year has been interesting. We saw the return of WoW Classic as well. And why it's interesting to me personally is that I think that over the last 10 years there has been this shift within the MMORPG specter, and WoW Classic is challenging that. A lot of people kind of chalked it up to nostalgia, but apparently it seems to continue to be gaining steam, and more people are playing it and enjoying it, be it casually or even hardcore in that regards. This year alone saw just a hands full of just really good games that have been well received and well enjoyed by people. And that's exciting to see. It's easy to kind of focus on the short-term negative side of it. And that's where obviously YouTube Rewind played it safe, incredibly safe this year, by just doing kind of a top 10 list of the various different highlight things. And honestly, I can't blame them for it. I think honestly, that's probably the only move they have in their back pocket. Better to do this and then refresh in 2020 and do something maybe a little bit risky or a little bit different, but it still can't change any of that. Google has been really interesting this year. We've seen a lot of changes in the algorithm. We've seen shifts each and every month. It seems like a lot of features. A lot of people frustrated ultimately by what the algorithm means and trying to live and play the algorithmic game. And honestly, at the end of the day, you can only do what you can do. And it is weird that this machine learning, this algorithm can dictate what trends and what is popular and what we're talking about. And so we'll have to see what we can do and what we can make 2020. If we can make it our own, and if we can live and thrive and grow, that's going to be something interesting from a gaming perspective on YouTube. Finally, the last bit of it is the Stadia, Google launching Stadia, and it's such an MVP. Really kind of thematically theming the whole year together in that regards. So hopefully when we look at the future and we see things, that we can start to see a shift to maybe more complete ideas, more fleshed out things. But I'm not going to sit here and give you false hope, because honestly, I think the MVP model works and it's there for a reason. And while it does burn people in the short term, in the long term, it ends up getting things out, getting it tested in a real world scenario. And so we're going to have to wait and see. It's interesting to see it as that. But obviously next year we'll see more game streaming services on the horizon with xCloud, with EA's launching their own, with more things in the cloud. And I think over the next 10, 15 years, hopefully we can get our internet infrastructure in this country in line to better serve that, which means more people consuming more content in many different ways. And who knows what that's gonna bring and mean. I think at the end of the day, Xbox has had a really killer year. PlayStation has really just crushed it, not just with its base, but excitement for the PS5 in 2020. Xbox with its services, Game Pass has just probably been the best value in gaming all around. For me personally, I think when I look at my Game of the Year nominees, Gears 5 is definitely one of them. That's been a game that I've thoroughly enjoyed. I've been playing Outer Worlds, really enjoying that with my wife, and I'm hopeful I can maybe pick up the Star Wars game this holiday season and play through that as well. I wanted to do all that earlier, but we've been a little bit busy here at the casa. Are there any stories that I missed regarding kind of like what happened in this year in gaming? There's been so much, and hopefully we'll start building it out, because apparently YouTube Rewind doesn't really cover gaming as much, and maybe we could make YouTube Gaming Rewind a real thing and not some guy just talking into a camera about it here at this channel, Work to Game. Guys, if for some reason I missed anything, let me know in the comments below. There's so much to talk about. And I want to just kind of, shift the focus as we go into the holiday season and as we barrel forward to 2020. The short term, there's definitely, it's like I said at the start of this, I could really sit down and say, man, this year sucked. I'm really excited about 2020, and that's true. But not everything sucked about it, and and it's important to kind of have the good with the bad. But the bad obviously drives so much more, and it's just easy to remember in the short term. In the long term, we tend to forget. That's why we look at the past with rose-colored glasses. That's why we look at the past and remember it fondly as a time when things were really good. But then when you dig into the past, sometimes you're like, oh, I forgot that that was out. I forgot that we thought we were going to get wiped out from a nuclear holocaust. Okay, yeah, it's like, let's end this video on a nuclear holocaust joke, not really a joke, just that the mindset that it is what it is. I'm floundering. Anyway, that's what I wanted to sit down and share. I wanted to talk about kind of this year in gaming and what it means. This has been an amazing year. This has been a year in which that our community here at Work to Game has grown. This has been a year where we've got to play a lot of really good games, and we've missed even more really good games that we haven't had the chance to play. We've got so much that we've just are thankful for, and so for you watching this video from Ryan and his family here with my little raid squad that we're building, thank you guys so much for an amazing year, and thank you guys so much for watching these videos, and thank you guys so much for your comments. We really treasure the conversations that we've had and the many people that we've gotten to know this year alone. YouTube Gaming Rewind is a beautiful thing. We're going to remember 2019, and we're going to remember some of the bad things, but by the time 2029 rolls around and more, there's going to be plenty of things that will be frustrating, and there'll be plenty of things that are amazing and epic. And hopefully we'll get more amazing, epic things to enjoy together and to just have and talk about, because there is a fatigue. There's a fatigue with the MVP, and I think overall there's a fatigue within the YouTube gaming space about so much and everything being overhyped and negative. And hopefully maybe the algorithm will shift. Maybe we'll shift a little bit ourselves, and we'll enjoy what this hobby is, what this life is, what this community is even more. Anyway, for Work to Game, my name is Brian. Thank you for watching this YouTube Gaming Rewind for 2019. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.